What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Paddy Fievet. Now, for over 16 years, Paddy has taught others to realise that their intuition comes in many forms and is innate to each of us and is something you're allowed, not something you do. Now, in her speaking engagement, she describes intuition as the language of the soul, and as such, can lead each of us into a richer, deeper self. Now, Paddy understands herself as well as her audience as a modern mystic. Paddy Fievet, welcome to the show.
Thank you, I'm glad to be here.
It's lovely to have you on. Thank you for making the time today to come on as well. I haven't had much chance, obviously, to do a lot of research on yourself, which kind of makes this fun for me in a sense, because it's the first one I've not done in ages where I've not put a lot of, time into it. But I think, as we've said off air, that, the gist of this interview is going to be pretty interesting and it's going to flow. Just initially, just tell us a bit about yourself to begin with as well.
Well, I was born in the Deep South. So deep, it was near the Okefenokee Swamp in southern Georgia, and where swatting mosquitoes was an art form and blowing gnats was a rite of passage, especially if you could do it without missing a beat in what you say. I was raised in Southern culture, immersed in Southern culture, immersed in Bible Belt fundamentalist religion, and did what I was told, lived from the roles I played instead of my authenticity, got married, and one day nothing was working. It was a gradual process, of course, but it was really, really not working. And if I was going to stay on this planet in my own choice, stay on this planet, because I was very suicidal at the time, if I was going to stay, then I had to figure out what life meant to me. And not only what life meant to me, I had to figure out who I was and what my purpose was, and just the whole gamut. And it was not easy. It was a very hard journey, and worth every tribulation. It was. At this point, I have a PhD in metaphysics. It was a lovely series of study because it taught me how to be me. I'm what's known from Elaine Aron's book on research as a highly sensitive person. I think deeply. I have a philosophical endeavor to myself. I see things not from the surface, but yes, what does that mean? I'm very, very intuitive, and I'm sensitive beyond belief, which is good and challenging.
Oh yeah, absolutely it is. Now, when
Yeah.
you was in that dark night of the soul scenario, right? So where did the metaphysical training touch place? So dark night of the soul. What happened then? Did you walk away from the life you had? What was your process?
Oh, that's where the story begins. That's a really good question. Because no, I was agoraphobic at the time. I was not able to walk away from anything on my own conscious, empowered decision. I didn't have that. And so what happened was that I had planned the suicide. I knew where my husband's gun was. We've been married about 32 years, and in my culture, 30 people didn't get divorced after 32 years. And where would I go and what would I do? I didn't have that mindset. But what I did have was faith. I began to question my religion, but I had faith, very, very, very strong faith. And that's where I started. And I went out one night just to make sure the gun was still in the car. It was going to be soon. But unbelievably, it was so dark. I looked down the barrel of the gun, and it was such a dark, dark barrel. I said out loud, I don't know who was listening, except maybe God, where is the light? You know, I had the moon above. It was a bright moon, but I still couldn't see down the barrel. Why I thought I needed to do that, I don't know. But what I did was say, where is the light? God, where is my light? I need to find my light. And that turned out to be a prayer. I did not know it, but it turned out to be a prayer. But the first big prayer. The next thing I knew, within a week, I had a stage 1 melanoma. On my back, it was a fluke the way it was found. I thought, there we go. All I have to do is let the silly thing grow. It was right behind my heart. I'm out. It was the most beautiful experience I've ever had because it taught me, that stage 1 melanoma taught me it wasn't dark I wanted, it wasn't out I wanted, it was life I wanted. And I wanted to live it. I wanted to feel it. I didn't want God to be out there somewhere checking off rights and wrongs. I needed my faith to be an experience. I needed that experience to be me, the basis of what I was. And so that stage 1 melanoma taught me that. And what I did was get down on my knees in a thunderstorm one day. I was writing at the time, and we'll get to that in a minute because it's an interesting story. But I was writing at the time, and I was writing in meditation at the time. And a thunderstorm that was just beating the dickens out of the flowers outside. They were lying in muddy puddles, and just like I was. And so I got down on my knees, and with every cell in my body, I actually meant the one sentence I said. Whatever is standing between me and living on this planet the way I was supposed to live, may it fall from me. And oh, those who are listening to this, if you ever say that, add the words with light, love, and ease. It was not easy. For a while, I lost everything I thought I loved. But the relationships fell apart. Friendships fell apart. The church fell apart. Fell apart for me. My marriage fell apart. And it exploded. didn't just fall apart, it exploded. And so there I was, and thrust out into the world with nothing but me. And so literally everything fell apart so it could fall together again in the right way. A dark night of the soul, yeah, I refer to it as my post-traumatic stress period. But hey, same difference.
What made you not pull that trigger?
That stage 1 melanoma. I realized what it was I wanted. It was like, hey, you don't need the gun, you got it out. It became real at that point. It became real. The decision became real. After my experience with that, I am convinced that people who do pull the trigger, they've lost a bit of realness. And I don't know how to explain that because I'm not a psychologist, but I had lost a realness. I had lost the ability to look around and see the earth and feel the earth and watch the birds and look in the mirror and see who I was. All there was in my life was negative emotion, dark negative emotion. And that's all there was. And the melanoma taught me, it taught me that, okay, that's what I wanted, here it is. And it was like the darkness was right there in front of me. No, this is not what I want. What I really want is life. Good, happy, joyous, fulfilling, thrilling, adventuresome life. And all I had was darkness. I had not realized what I wanted. I thought I just wanted out. What I wanted was to live.
How much had you surrendered at that time to being in the present moment?
I didn't understand about surrendering in the present moment. But there was something going on in my life parallel to this time. It started right after the melanoma, if I'm remembering the time correctly. It started right after the melanoma, when I consciously decided I wanted life. I was allergic to the world and everything in it. I had just severe allergies, and one day I felt like I needed to, my intuition just flew wide open. It had been put away at childhood because it was not validated by people around me. I would see and deceased beings would come into my room at night, and I was told it was a bad dream. I was told I was imagining it. I could feel the energy of a tree. I could feel the energy of a rock. No, you can't do that, because I was born into loving parents who did not understand intuitive children. And so it was put away. And then at this point in my life, after the one-stage melanoma, when I said what I really want is life, after that full intention, it came back. The intuition just flooded. So we've only got 51 minutes. To make a long story short, adventuresome story short, what I ended up doing, I felt like I needed them. Intuition just came to me and said, you need to go to a Carolyn Mace talk she was having. It was at the Omni in Atlanta, and there were thousands of people there. I did not do well. I was agoraphobic. I did not do well sitting in a room full of thousands of people. But there was a massage therapist, younger friend of ours, who was going, and he had a couple of clients, and so I went to sit with them. I thought, okay. I had a panic attack, a real big panic attack in the middle of it, and ran out to jump off the bridge. He got me back in. And the lady next to me, who I had never met, she was sitting on my right. And in my book, I call her Maria. Maria said, you're having a panic attack. Turn your back to me and I can help. Well, anything at this point. So I turned my back, and then bloop, 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 bloop. She takes a pencil eraser and goes down my backbone on either side and says, hold your breath. And then she said, breathe deeply and breathe normally. It went away. I walked out of my panic and into somebody else's calm, and I looked at her and said, who are you and what do you do? She says, I'm an allergy intuitive. I help people get rid of their allergies from an energetic standpoint. And you are having a brain reaction from the perfume of the woman sitting in front of you. Well, it was strong enough to gaggle a goose. Yes, I was having a reaction, but I did not realize it. So I did, when I left, I realized, well, Carolyn Mace is great, and I've read her books, and I love her to death, and she's a beautiful, wonderful teacher. Well, I'll admit, I was led to go to her conference, not to hear her speak, but to meet Maria. I started getting energetic allergy treatments every week, 4 times a week. My ex-husband husband at that time was not supportive at all. And so I would put on my exercise clothes and drive to her house and come back. And he never realized that I'd been gone 4 hours, and I'm not going to be at the gym 4 hours. I'm not so inclined. But anyway, it worked. And I began to be able to do things like walk down the aisle of the grocery store without having a panic attack, and pump my own gas without having a panic attack. I had chemical sensitivities and didn't know it. But one day, and here's the crux of the story, one day Maria said she was getting her PhD in energy healing from Norm Shealy and Carolyn Mace. And one day she said, I'm having a whole group of people come, and I need 12 before the teacher would come. I can get credit for a course. It's on intuition. I need you to come. See, Maria had recognized that I had put my intuition away and that it needed to come forth. And, well, she bribed me with a couple of free treatments. And, okay, money speaks. And so I went, and sitting there, I was with 11 of the most intuitive ladies I had ever met. But the interesting thing was, Kevin, they weren't afraid of it. For them, it was normal. For them, it was a God-given right. It wasn't something secretive. It wasn't evil. It wasn't witchcraft. It was God speaking to them. And I thought, well, my goodness, that's different. But what really surprised me for the first 2 days was that I could do everything that they were doing. Some things better than others. I could do all that. But the last exercise, this is where my life changed. And I say that with all of the honesty and sincerity that I literally can say my life changed. We were told to write at the top of our little yellow notebook that she had given us, a clear page, right at the top a question that had plagued you all of your life. Then using the techniques, go into a quiet place in Dr. Maria's house, and go into an altered state like we were taught, and see how the answer comes. Do you get a vision? Do you hear a whisper? You know how it works. You've been around the block. You know how
Absolutely.
It works. Well, I thought, yeah, sure. That's what I thought, yeah, sure. And so the teacher, Tina, I call her Tina in the book, she said, try it. Just try it. All right. So I went back and sat in the corner of an obscure bedroom, pretending to be the sophistic that I just was not, and wrote the question at the top of the page. Why do I never feel good enough? Oh, I almost want to cry, thinking of myself at that point, because that was my soul question. That was my big question. Why do I never feel good enough? And I wrote it, well, I kept the pencil in my hand, and the next thing I knew, my hand was writing at the top of the page, it was writing at the bottom of the page, it was writing in the middle, it filled in the gaps, and I had a whole page. I had no concept of what I was writing, I just knew that I had to keep doing it. So I just burst into tears. I got an answer. Something out there, something so glorious and so wonderful and so holy, because that's what it felt like, loved me enough to come into my life and answer that question.
Yeah. How much trust was that at the time to go with that writing?
It was easy. It just happened. It literally just happened. I know now it was automatic writing. I didn't know what it was then. I've got it in both books, Making of a Mystic and When Life Cried Out, and I called it Castles. It was talking about my point of view, my perspective. I had thought everything else was more opulent, more splendid than I was, and I didn't know myself from the inside. And when I walked back to the group, the teacher came and got me. And she says, it's okay if it didn't happen. And I said, oh, but it did happen. And I read it, and she teared up, and 6 out of the 11 teared up, and several wanted copies. They were healers, and they wanted copies of it. I thought, something's happened. Something's happened. I've tapped in. That's what I call it. I've opened up, and something came in. And I kept writing. And that was basically my story. It's how my books came about. I
Wow.
kept writing. I thought, well, if it happened once, will it happen again?
Yes,
So
yes.
I would write a question and it would come through me,
Do,
the answer.
where does religion fit into your life now, or even the understanding of why you had that religious upbringing as a soul to choose that life?
Okay, good question. Um, Let me tell a story. When I was a child, I remember being about 6 years old and sitting in Sunday school class. That was something we did. And sitting in Sunday school class, and the teacher showing us a very vivid piece of artwork on an 8 by 10 of people on fire burning in hell. And she passed it around and she said, this is what's going to happen to you if you're not good little girls and boys and do what God wants. And I looked at her and said, then I'm going to believe in Santa Claus instead of God, because at least he's nice and gives you presents. It was I was banished from Sunday school class and sent across the street to my grandmother's house. I had been bad, you know.
Right, yes, of
But
course.
so that was the basis of my childhood religion. And what it did was give me, let's speak in positive terms, it gave me an opportunity to go richer and go deeper. And I heard Ron Roth one time say, Father Ron Roth, say at a conference, take everything you have ever learned about God through your religion and put it in an imaginary box and stick it under your chair. And then later on, pull it out, open the box, and take out what you have learned and see if it resonates for you or not. I thought, whoa. But today, I am a member of a Protestant church. I love it. It's the type of Protestant church that is not one particular socioeconomic group. It is not a Protestant church that it's not fundamentalist. It's more open to everybody's experiences. I can stand up and say I have had experiences I call mystical that have changed me. I felt like God was present in my life, and it's okay with everybody, but it's been a conscious choice with
That's
me.
beautiful. That's beautiful for anyone that's been going through the same thing, that if they feel that they miss the social aspect as well of the church, and the connection with people, because that's very important, mixing with being with people, that actually you can find the right church for you that will accept you and your life and your journey.
Can. Yeah, you can. I have tried a lot. I have tried them. I won't say them all, but I have tried a good many of them. And I have learned, too, that it's the individual congregation also that makes a big difference. When I got married about 5 years ago for the second time, it's a glorious, wonderful relationship. And we started going to his church he'd been to for 20-something years. They all knew each other, and I never felt like I fit in. I haven't lived in this community forever. My grandparents were not for this community. And on it goes. And church to me is about going and feeling like I've got a takeaway. Like there's something that goes on in that meeting, on the Sunday morning meeting, or even during the week, that I can contribute to positively, or that I can take away from and enhance my life. And I didn't feel that, so we changed. We started exploring and we changed. And that's what it's about. A church should increase your spirituality. It should help you, it's an organization, but it should help you get closer to God in your own way. I think that's an individual thing.
Yes, because when they dictate and when your experience is not allowed to be as such, because that goes against the teachings or their understandings of a rule book, in a sense, then that is not allowing that expression of yourself, then is it?
Yes, you might as well. In my third book, the one that I'm writing, I have a story. I was in Belgium during my discovery years, my awakening years. I would go to Belgium for about 3 months. It was a safe place for a single female to be. And I would go to Belgium. And one of those trips to Belgium, for about 2 months, one of those trips to Belgium, I went to an outdoor theater that had birds, golden eagles fly. And I was just mesmerized by them. There's nothing more beautiful than an eagle. But there were golden brown eagles, and they would fly from the bottom of the bleacher right above our heads. And it was like the wings, and the wind from the wings was like the touch of spirit itself. And then I realized, wait a minute, why aren't they flying off? I wanted to stand up and scream, be free, fly away, but they didn't. And the church to me is the same thing. Learn your gifts, live to your maximum potential. Don't stop growing. So that is what I think the role of church is today.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for sharing that with us. I appreciate that as well, for anyone that's going through or been through or wherever they may be in life with that process. And it's a beautiful story. Now, going back to this creative writing as well.
Yes.
Has it got? What are you bringing through? Is it a collective group? Has it no name? Is it your higher self, your oversoul? How powerful are you? what we've all got this power. So you're a shining example of what we all can tap into when we're looking and ready to have that experience. If we trust ourselves that it's a real experience, what information are you bringing through? Would you say?
I am not able to sit here and say that some being that has a name from the other side is working through me and I'm typing as they speak. I'm not able to say that. I have done that, and that compared to what I experience with this automatic writing, that seems like a lower vibration. The automatic, not that it is a low vibration, that's not what I'm saying. It's a very high vibration. But what I do, the vibration is excessively high. And that's how I know I'm there. That's how I know I've tapped in, I'm listening to the right thing. Like I had said earlier in the interview, I'm extremely sensitive and I can tell different vibrations. And it's like tapping into the dials on a radio station for me. And so, but I never do any of it without first stating my intention and saying a prayer. I need the good to come through. I need the highest spiritual that can come through. And anything else, please just honor my space and stay away. But as far as higher self and oversoul, that type of thing, I think of each of us as a pencil. Pretend like this is a pencil. I don't have one nearby. Only part of ourselves we know is the very tip. There's all of this other stuff that makes us work, that's above us, higher on another plane. But we are just the tip of the pencil. We are what does the writing. We are just the point. And that's what true empowerment is to me. Realize that there's more to me than I physically can grasp through my five senses.
Oh yes,
and I think there's more to everybody.
Yeah, well, I've always said this recently. Absolutely, I've always said this recently. That I believe that there's a framework that we're unaware of, that's never been written about, that's not been talked about, that's not even understood. That the understandings that we have in books about, we go towards the light, then we get a life review, then we get to meet our loved ones, then we get to choose whether we come back. I don't think it's even that. I think it's even more uncomprehendable than that, possibly. That's just a frame. Yeah, I think that's just a way in. I'm not saying there's no truth in it. It's people's truth, but it's at their level of understanding. I think as you say, the ultimate nature of what this experience is and what we are is probably ununderstandable at the level that we're at right now, as is not remembering that we came from there in the first place.
Yes, I totally agree with you. We tend to put I think, was it Rudolph Otto? I should know that. If I'm going to quote somebody, I should be sure of it, but that's not what happened. Who invented the term the numinous, God beyond our perception. But the thing is, we don't have words to define. Our words have specific meaning, and this is how we communicate with simple words that are two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and have specific meanings. And we are talking about something that is so great and so beyond us that it's hard to put it in words. The words are limiting. I read something the other day that said you can never describe God. It's too limiting. And I agree with this, whether you want to call it universe or whatever. It's too
Well,
limiting
exactly.
to describe.
Even the limits on the name God, that's a limit. Yeah.
It is a limit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it is a
so,
limit.
but we have to use words. I understand that, right?
We have to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're at. How loving is this source of information that's coming through for yourself and mankind? How loving is this information?
It's extremely loving. Extremely loving. It's the greatest love that I have ever felt on this earth, and I'm in a very, very loving relationship. But this is like being a newborn and lovingly held in a mother's arms. It just encases and encompasses, and because of this loving feeling, you know that you know.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And how wise is it as well? Is it very wise?
Yes, it's extremely wise. Things come through that I would not have been able to get. And over the years, it has changed. It has, the word that comes to mind is morphed, but I'm not sure if that's the correct word. It has changed as my personal vibrational level was so low when this first message came through, this first loving message about that I called castles that I spoke about earlier. When it first came through, there was a huge difference. I was here. See if I can get on the screen. I was here and it was there.
Right.
You know, there was a huge vibrational difference, and I was very, very aware of it. So when that presence came in, I was very aware. I saw Wayne Dyer on stage one day.
Yes, yes.
I started on one side of the stage, and he said, "All right, this is your lower vibration." And then he walked all the way across the stage, and he said, "This can be your higher vibration. Why do you want to be there if you can be here?" And so as these writings came through, it was like spiritual psychology 101, because that's what I needed, and I really needed. And my own personal vibration got higher as I began to integrate what I was learning.
Absolutely, absolutely. And okay, so a lot of this information has ended up in the two wonderful books that you've done, right? Which have been appearing.
It is.
Yeah.
The process of when life cried out, it was one woman's spiritual quest to be fully alive. That was the experience of traveling all over the world. I was led to travel, and I do have about 6 or 7 of these writings peppered through in the locations where they happened. There was one inside the Great Pyramid. There was an experience in Malta that I dealt with feminine anger, and it was so profound that it knocked me flat on the sofa. I could not move my back. And yeah, I was just a little bit angry with that one. But anyway, so, and I explained those experiences when life cried out. But as I was finishing that book, and I had an editor that was helping me content-wise, he was a content editor. He picked up the phone and called me one day, and editors rarely do that. But he picked up the phone and called me one day and says, "These writing things that you have, how many have you got?" I said, "Well, they changed over the years. You know, I had, I don't know, 20 or 30, 50, 75. You know, I had a lot of those." I said, and then I began to hear God speak through trees, and then God speak through butterflies, and it comes out as poetry then. And there was dead silence on the other end of the phone. I never would have said that had I not trusted him. Dead silence. And he said, "That's your book." And I thought, oh. And when life cried out took me 4 years because I integrated my experiences as I was writing.
Right.
And took 4 years to write. Making of a Mystic, the second book, was actually published first. And it took 2 weeks to put together. And that is the one that has attracted people's attention
Yes, of course.
because I do have the poetry in there, but in the back I also have a thing about what you can do in your life to increase your spirituality or your closeness to God, some concepts. And then I've got several pages about mysticism that came through me. And so of the two books, well, I'm proud of them both, of course, because I never thought I would be doing this. I think, what's the saying? God laughs when we make our plans.
Yeah, when man plans, God laughs. That's right.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's truth in that. I mean, yeah, you imagine your ex-husband, as he views you now. You're such a different person because you were brave enough to put yourself first, which put others first, which actually I would have, I don't know if you can agree with this, but if you look back now, would have actually put him first as well.
I did put him first. While we were married, I put him first. A story that will describe the depth of when I put him first. After we were separated, a friend said, let's go out to eat supper. Well, most of my friends had fallen away, so I was grasping at this, and Sonia was her name, and Sonia, I was in her car and she was driving. She said, where do you want to go? I said, oh, anywhere you want, it's fine with me. And she looked at me and she said, that was not the question. Where do you want to go? I said, well, what do you feel like eating, Sonia? Paddy, I wanted to know where you want to go. And I couldn't answer her. I didn't know where I wanted to go eat. But I was perfectly willing to go where she wanted to go eat. I didn't know myself well enough to know. But I was willing to go where she wanted. I would just make do. She pulled a car on the side of the road, put it in park, and she said, we're not going anywhere till you pick a restaurant. Bless her.
Yeah, so go on, sure, go ahead.
I'm known what's known as an empath. I feel how you feel. I'm in a room full of people. I can feel it. And if I'm in a room with a lot of people, it's overload. Until you learn how to work with that. I've heard it called psychic empath or just empath, but I'm very empathic. And I was riding down the road one day when it came back, this empathy came back, and it was out of control. It was so strong. And I was riding down the road. It was a 6-lane road, and in my blind spot was a hearse, and I did not know it because I couldn't see it through my mirrors. But all of a sudden, I'm bursting. What am I going to do without him? He's dead now, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, well, who's died? And then the hearse and the funeral procession went by, and I thought, oh, it's not mine, it's yours. But I was feeling it as if I was mine. I've had that all of my life, and as a child, it was a survival technique. Yes. Was I born with it? Perhaps. I don't know. But I could tell the energy of my father and my mother before a problem started.
Right, but it is very true in your case as well that when it's suppressed as much as yours was, that it will bubble over in the end, especially in your unhappiness at that pinnacle point when you had it, that sort of dark night of the soul that we spoke about. But I think. You probably were born with it. I'm just putting, you probably were. But I mean, I think we all have this ability, don't we? But we do. But there are. But like an artist, there's great artists that can paint very spectacularly, and there's mediocre artists. So we may be. There is that sort of value in there, isn't there? Of how much when we're born with it, it's meant to be for others and ourselves. But it's difficult to put this in words. I think we do have it. I think, though, another thing is training. We have to train it, don't we? We do. We have to not only train it, but we have to use what I call in my third book that's not out yet. I'm just finishing it. The WOST principle, WOST, willingness, openness, surrender, and trust. And we have to do that. It's greater than we are. So we have to be willing to change, willing to be open. We have to be open to an experience that is something maybe we can't micromanage at first. We have to surrender, and coming from where I've come from, that was the hardest one. Surrender means giving up yourself. No, that's not what it means. It means acknowledging that something out there, whether it's the top of your pencil,
your higher self, or whether it's God, or whatever you think it to be, the great universe, the life force, whatever you want to call it, is out there as you, in here as you, for you, greater than you, and you're part of it.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. Could you say that what you're bringing through is actually you're bringing through your oversoul, your higher self? Could you go down that road, that maybe you're that powerful and we're all that powerful, that all this wonderful knowledge that we can, that you're bringing through and that we could bring through for ourselves, it's all us, that greatest part of ourself that seems to be not left behind, but in some other reality, we call it, it's maybe in home in heaven. That's just, is that even true? Who knows? But there's some other part of ourselves that we're able to call upon, and you say God comes through you. Could you be the God that you're bringing through?
Yes and no. Yes, I could be, and I am at the point now where I am embracing that more and more. There does not seem to be a separation with me at this point in my life between God and me. But to say that I am God, no, that would not be correct. I prefer to say God is experiencing a tiny little part of itself as me.
Yes.
And there's greater than me. Catherine I wrote her name down because I just had the feeling I would need to quote her. She's had a Catherine of Genoa, I think that's how you pronounce it. She said, "My me is God." And I liked that. She said something else, but I can't remember the rest of it, but I did remember that. My me is God. And I like that. And Rumi had described soul as a drop of water in a sea of ocean, and the ocean being God, So you can't say you walk down the street and say, well, I am God, it's a humility there. But you can say that I am God experiencing itself as me. And I'm very comfortable with that. That's my higher self. That's my bigger self. That's my tapped in self. That's my true self. That's my authenticity.
Yes.
But then I've got this other thing that lives within us. It's like this the Native American story. There are two wolves fighting. I've got this ego thing that tries to micromanage everything, and I call it my internal editor that has a value judgment on everything. And the Native American story, the young boy went to his Native American grandfather for wisdom, and the grandfather said, "The inside of you there are two wolves fighting." And the boy said, "Which one wins, grandfather?" And he said, "The one that you feed." And I think that's very important story for the conversation we're having right now. Am I feeding the ego wolf? I'm human. Sometimes I do. And then I have to stop back and as they say in football language, I have to drop back and punt. I have to.
Yeah, because as you say, we're human. That happens. I mean, we can't help it. But then you can easily notice people in pain with the ego, in the sense that they've never really. They've never done the things they wanted to do in life. They're fearful of every move. Everything has to be based on logic, which I think logic plays an important part. Don't get me wrong,
It does.
Yeah. I'm not. But then there's how you feel about things as well. But they won't go down that road. Life's been tough for them, and because they haven't wanted to go with their intuition, their soul, this part of them that's all knowing. They've ignored it. They've cut it off because the ego is it's a power. It's the editor that takes over sometimes. Totally.
It does take over. We feel like we need to be in control. The world these days works through the business model. You set your goal, you write down the steps, and then you get it done. If you want to stop my flow with writing, be an editor or a publicist or somebody who gives me a business model and says, these are the steps and this is what you need to be doing the way you need to be doing it. I have trouble with that because I'm in a flow. I don't know which next. I don't know what's around the bend, and that's okay. It would be great. For instance, we're sitting here on video, seeing each other on the computer. It's interesting because it had been suggested to me many times over the last 6 months. You really need to be talking on video. And my small self says, ooh, that's too scary. I'm having a ball. Here we are. It just happened.
Yeah.
It's a flow. Rounded a corner. I didn't know what was there.
Yeah.
But I trusted the process. Okay, I'm open. Here it is. Manifest.
Well, yeah, here I am. Well, I'm grateful that life's brought us together, and it's trusted me that I would give you the space to allow that experience to be okay. That's really nice.
Yeah,
But there you go. You trusted in the end, and actually, what has been experienced in this moment is actually quite happy and quite quite a decent space in a sense. So all that fear was for no reason, in some respects. But then don't we need that though sometimes, just to keep us on track, just to say, well, because if there's no fear there in a way, right, then we may make a wrong decision. But then again, is any decision really wrong? I do say that to myself sometimes. No matter what's gone wrong, was it really the wrong thing? It took us on that path.
That's profound. Is any decision really wrong? Yeah. I looked back for years and thought, did I fail by marrying who I did? I had beautiful children. No, I did not. It was where I was in life. It was the right decision with what I knew at the time.
Well, I bet it wasn't.
And then you grow and you evolve, and you have to look, and perhaps that means making a different decision.
No, that's an interesting point. Sorry, I know we've got such little time here. I'm not trying to butt in. I do apologise, right? But you mentioned you've got the children. Now, if someone's going through this with children as well, where they've had to make really tough decisions in life, and it's been very painful for them. It's caused them a lot of pain to make these decisions, to pull away from what they loved and what they knew. Well, even though it wasn't working for them long term. Had they stayed, it would never have been as painful as it is now. But they've done the right thing. But with children, it's never easy, is it?
Oh my goodness, it was not easy. My children were grown, but it was still a huge shock to them. I thought erroneously they would see it coming. It was so obvious to me. I thought they would see it coming. But I'd even mentioned it, but no, they did not see it coming, and it was difficult. I normally don't speak about my children, but I will speak about a piece of advice that my mother gave me.
Yes.
When my children were having trouble, how do you communicate with mom? She's been this way all these years, and now she's taking off and going to Europe by herself, and these type things. Who is this woman that's supposed to be my mother? And how do I talk to her? And this type thing was going on, and I spoke to my mother about it. And she gave me some of the best advice Mother has ever given. She said, I have been there in a different way with one of my children, and for a different reason, but I have been there. And she said, love through it. It will change, but you stay in a state of love. I know that it will always work out in some way. It will, maybe not the way you want to, but it will work out in some way, and stay in a state of love.
Yeah.
And it did.
And it did, yeah.
It was good advice.
That was very good. Thank you very much for sharing that with anyone that this is going to resonate with. Thank you very much. Did you find it hard to be in that state of love though, or were you sort of pain free in a sense because you had gone down the road which was the right road for you? You'd followed your gut feeling, and
I knew it was the right road for me. I was on an intuitive quest. I knew it was the right road for me. I knew that nobody understood. Birth family, friends, the ex, I knew nobody understood. But I even had a lady in a copy shop one time. I was having to copy something yet again to send the opposing divorce lawyer, and it was a year and a half of problems like that. And she said, oh, you're getting divorced. Well, I will pray with our church group, I will pray that you will see the error of your ways and go back, and be the wife that your husband needs you to be. And I looked at her and said, it won't do you any good. God's the one that told me to leave. And she goes, oh.
I love it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's how I felt. It felt like so much the right thing to do in order to find out who I was and what I was, and I had to be safe. I had to get out. I had to be safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and that advice as well for men as well. It's not just women. I mean, this can happen. It can be from the male perspective as well, that they just feel that it's all that they've had an awakening, and or not.
Yes.
They've come. They've come to a point where the pain is just too much, and you just can't take it anymore. Yeah.
That's right. We were not here on this planet to suffer and be in pain at our own choice. I firmly believe that. Does that mean we cavalierly say, hey, that's not working for me, get lost? No, that's not what I'm saying. But like the decision I made, we are here to live and to really live. We were created with rights. We were created with gifts. We are all creative intuitively, and none of us are created alike. And so we are here to figure out what these gifts are, what our specific method of intuition is, to figure out how to figure out what our sense of spirituality is, and to increase that. That's why we're here. We're here to live. And occasionally it's nice to smile. There will be chaotic times, but you live through them and there's another side.
Absolutely. As long as you're going to be here, it's never going to be completely smooth sailing. You're going to get tested. There's tests. That lady in the copying shop was a test for you. You passed it, but it was a test. Yeah.
And it was a test. I was shocked. Yeah, I was shocked.
But there's no wrong or right. I don't think there is.
That was not. That was her perspective.
Yeah.
And she was doing what she thought was the loving Christian thing to do.
Absolutely.
And I can bless her for that. Thank you, but I'm just somewhere else right now.
Yeah. No, I did love your answer. That was a really good answer for that. Yeah. And it was a true answer. That's why it was a good answer. Now, if someone's, for actually people watching this right now as well, and they're like, it sounds great. I've heard this so many times, and I know that, you've got Paddy's got the experience. She's been there. She's lived it. She's gone through it. She's still going through it now in the sense of these wonderful books. But I can't even get in the space of listening to that voice, whether it's creative writing or it's the voice in my head. And I say to people, quieten down. Bit of meditation, and in that meditation, if your voice comes through and it's your voice you hear, that's the voice we're talking about. Why does it not have to be your voice? They expect it to be some grand male voice or female, but it's your voice probably that's going to come through.
It is your voice. When I say with the automatic writing, and nowadays it's like my vibration is higher, and it's like a oneness that happens. And so maybe it is indeed my voice, but for me it's like I hear a thought.
Yes.
I hear a thought.
Yes.
And I have to discern what's the vibrational level of this thought. Is it a small thought from me, my small self, my ego? Is it a higher thought? And if you want, and I want to say this to our audience, if your intuition begins to increase, it will increase if you desire it, and willingness, openness, surrender, and trust. It will increase, but always give yourself the permission to discern, and always ask that whatever comes for your highest and best good, and that you will have the gift of discernment to understand it. It's very, very important to ask for that gift of discernment.
Now that's important. That is the gift of discernment. Because if it turns around to you and says, "I want you to, book an airline ticket now and go to blah blah," are you really going to do that? I mean, if you've nearly got not the money for it, or it would put other people, it would be a problem. It creates problems doing that. I mean, are you really going to do something, crazy? Or if it feels so right, how do you discern? I mean, because I mean, for me, I would have to use logic in there, right? But then,
well, I did that on my first trip to Egypt. I was traveling down the road and on a highway, and I know we're short of time, so I'm going to.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll go over a bit. It's okay.
Okay. And so this vision, I know it was not real. It was a third eye vision in front of me. It was a bald-headed lady with a funny hat that was taller in front and lower in the back, and she had a lot of jewelry around her neck. I have no clue as to what it is. Who it is, but she's coming toward me, in the vision. Well, I've got to drive. I'm on a 6-lane freeway, and I've got to drive. And so, okay, you've got my attention now. Move over to the side, and I didn't know who she was. And so I had a friend, and a very intuitive friend, and I emailed, who is the crazy lady that may be Egyptian with the funny-looking hat? Nefertiti. Oh, okay. So I look up Nefertiti. Well, what was that about? And then I dream in meditation, Nefertiti is coming, heal my Nile, heal my Nile. What? Am I supposed to go to the Nile and heal it? That doesn't sound right. Heal my Nile. And then I realize, heal, period, Heal, my Nile. Oh, but it wouldn't go away. I'm telling you, there was a program on TV about Nefertiti. I was standing in line at the checkout counter. She was featured on a magazine. I had said, if I am supposed to go to Egypt, all right, it needs to be overwhelming evidence because my analytical brain says too expensive, no way, etc. And so, all right, I need to go to Egypt. Well, I checked tours, and I can't afford that. So then I go back. I have what's called a God box, and it's just a little box. And if there's something I really want to talk with the higher spirit with one-on-one, I'll write it down and I'll put it in the box, and all right, it's handled. So that's what I did. Help me afford it. The next thing I know, I was in Europe, and an email comes through. There's a trip from the Netherlands, which is just a train ride away, from the Netherlands to the Middle Nile Egypt, all expenses on a 5-star boat. You'd cruise up and down the Nile, going to the temples, and it was $800 American, food, air, everything.
Wow.
I gotta go. Right. So I found a traveling companion, and off we went.
Wow. Well, so because you let it go, you've let it go into the universe, in a sense, you could have called it that, and whatever's going to be is going to be. There's a bit of surrendering there as well, but it's happened. It's not instantaneous like these things are never, but it's happened. And that experience is quite cool, because in the sense that it kept coming to you, even in the shop. There was something on the TV, and I think I've had that as well, where it's such reoccurring dreams happen again and again and again and again and again, and you're like, oh my God, okay, I will go do something about it. Best thing that ever happened.
What do they have to do? Light a fire in front of you? Moses had a bush, so the Bible says, it burns up. And what's it going to take to get your attention?
Yeah,
it's up to us.
So it's using that balance there, where you're not just, as we were saying. So you've got to see how repeatable is the pattern of the advice coming through sometimes, if you're not too sure about it. But if it was to feel so right, and it was such happiness came from that feeling, and as long as it's when you're bringing this information through, the one thing it's not about is any harm to anyone else and yourself.
It's not. It's not about any harm to anyone else.
So if
I went to the Nile and I shook and had panic attacks the whole time I was there. But it was the most glorious experience. It was just the most glorious experience. There were 2 struggles that I had at that time. One was very aggressive men, and the second one was overwhelming fear about absolutely everything. Well, guess what? I went into the Nile area one way, and I came out without those 2 problems.
Wow.
I'm an empath. I'm an environmental empath also, and just the energies of the area. I learned how it was to feel without fear.
Absolutely. Now, well, thank you for sharing that as well. Now, we kind of touched on I touched on the idea that there's great painters, there's and there's mediocre painters, and I think we all have this ability that you have, and please disagree or agree with me once more, in just a second. And if we do have this ability, we may not be there to go out in the world to use it as a healing power for others. It may be there in a normal, everyday situation to be able to bring in to give us the answers we're looking for. If we're really stuck with an answer, we can go within and ask.
And you may not hang your shingle out as a healer for others, but you could be in line as something mundane as being in line in a grocery store, and just one word or a simple conversation with somebody else is exactly what they needed at that time. And without this sense of intuition, without struggling, without tapping in, without embracing our own inner mystic, if you want to call it that.
That's right.
Yeah, then there's no way the planet would be as better off. Let me start again. The planet would be better off if we embraced this and used it on a daily basis in seemingly simple ways. Even if we never said another word to anybody else, if we lived our own life the way that we think is the best way, perhaps we would be an example to someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some people may be watching this and thinking, well, that's just a load of rubbish, because I don't believe in any of that yet. I'm in such pain. I'm watching this, yet I don't believe it. Why did I watch it in the first place? Kind of thing. But I think sometimes if there is someone like that watching this, you've just got to be prepared to look outside the box and just see, even if you don't believe that there's more to this reality than we see, that just to see the power within yourself, the power that you have, that all answers you were looking for lie within. It's so cliche.
Yeah, that's very true. I firmly believe from my own experiences, and probably that's why it's so strong, is that pain is a catalyst. It can be a catalyst. Why does it happen? We start to question, we start to look. And sometimes a chaotic experience can be a catalyst. We are forever changed by this chaotic experience, and we can be changed in a newer and better and greater way through understanding or through love, or maybe it's through acceptance. I don't know. Everybody's story is different. Everybody's journey is different. But I am convinced, Fire Richard Rohr writes about that in several of his books. It can be a catalyst. Look at St. John of the Cross. He was beaten. He was shoved under the staircase and was beaten for entertainment for months and months on end. And then when he finally understood that he would love them anyway, they released him. And he went on to do great things. So, but it's hard to tell somebody that when they're in the midst of a chaotic, really, really down time in their life.
Of course.
It's really, very difficult to explain that.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and you do it with love as well, in the way you've just done there, and let's hope it reaches some people that it needs to, definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you offer readings in the sense of if people have questions, and something that you do, or?
Do you know, I used to when I was first going, and mine never. The first thing I did was take Reiki, and I thought, well, that would be something that's non-threatening that I could do. And my Reiki turned out to be a little different than the group. And well, this is fine. It was just what happened. There was a lady who had a lump in her breast, and I couldn't feel the energy. And the Reiki teacher, who was also a Chinese medicine doctor and very intuitive, said, well, Patty, I know you're doing this automatic writing thing, and I can't do it was messing up the flow of the room. It was creating a little chaos. He said, well, just get off to the side and just channel it. Well, he was doing it to get me away from the group. But what I did was, I could feel the energy. I was too close. I don't feel the energy up close. I have to be across the room, and I can feel it. And everybody says, oh, she's clear. There's no energy problems. Nobody knew about the breast lump, but I'm feeling something that shouldn't be there. And so I'm doing, and I'm bringing in prayer big time. And then the breast jumps. It just jumps. And everybody looked, what'd you do? Well, I didn't do anything. Spirit did this. And the next week, she said the next day after that experience, she was in to have a lumpectomy, and she went in, it was gone. And so this type thing, I had these experiences,
Wow.
but then life fell apart so it can fall together again. And when it has fallen together, I don't do the one-on-one readings. I do one-on-one consultations, and I teach you some of the principles that I have learned so that you can take what you have learned your way into your own life. I don't believe readings as such.
Okay.
Anymore.
So that's all available on your website as well?
Yes. I've got a new website coming out. It will be modernmystic.us. No, modernmystic.me.
Okay.
And it should be out in the next month. And you will see it there. I've also got another website that you can contact me. It's Paddy Fievet, PADDYFIEVET.com. And it's already out and up and alive, and you can find me there.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're putting those websites on the screen, and we've been putting your books up as well. Now, last question now.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this. What would you say is the most important message of your work?
Oh, what a lovely question. You are, and I'm talking to the people listening, you are right now more than you think you are. You are more than you think you will ever be. You are more than your possibilities. You are more than you can even dream. It is your innate right. You are part of a greater whole that is holy, that is loving. You are created in love. You were born in love. You are love, regardless of what your physical circumstances have been to this point. You are intuitive beyond belief. The only thing stopping you from getting to those places or beginning those journeys, because there's no end place, is your attitude about what you think can be possible. So I would say embrace the infinite, because that's who you are.
Well, Paddy Fievet, I would just like to say thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I had a ball. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.